The article referenced in this video was researched, authored, and published by Bill Corbett. Bill is not only a recognized researcher, but also the founder and executive officer of a Georgia nonprofit, Veteran Fathers. Please help this nonprofit start a privately funded domestic violence shelter for men, fathers, and their children in Atlanta, Georgia, Daddy's House. We hope you enjoy this review of his research article. Thank you for your support.
Imagine this. You know when you're flipping through TV channels and like a domestic violence awareness ad comes on, who do you usually see as the victim?
Yeah, more often than not, it's a woman.
Exactly. And while that's definitely a huge part of the problem, it kind of got me thinking, like, what happens when a man needs help? Where do they even go? You actually requested a deep dive on this, and wow, even I was surprised by some of the stuff out there.
Yeah, it's an area that's unfortunately kind of shrouded in silence.
Okay, so to like shed some light on all this, we're going to take a deep dive into a 2024 report. It's called DV Shelters for Men, Fathers, and Their Children. And get this report is trying to put together like a list of shelters just for men, right?
Yeah.
But even finding that information, it was like trying to, I don't know, solve a puzzle in the dark.
Yeah, absolutely. The report's author actually talks about like hitting all these roadblocks, just trying to find good data.
Really, it's that hard to just find out where men can get help.
Yeah, it really is. And that speaks volumes about, the deeper problems here. One of the biggest things is there's no like central database. It's not like there's this big list of every domestic violence shelter and what they do.
So each shelter is kind of doing its own thing, like with its own definition of what even is a shelter. It's not like ordering a burger, you know what you're going to get.
Right, exactly. So some shelters might just offer like a place to stay. Others might have counseling, legal help, even job training. That lack of standardization, it makes it almost impossible to like compare them or really see what's out there.
And to make things even harder, a lot of shelters, especially ones that help men, they're already strapped for resources, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They're often focused on those immediate needs, like just keeping people safe over, collecting data, which means the information we do have, it might not be the whole picture. It's like, imagine trying to understand, I don't know, like a nationwide problem, but you're only using like local news reports. You're missing so much.
It's like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and that is scary.
And get this, the report actually mentions this crazy statistic. For every 1,000 domestic violence shelters for women, there's only one for men. Let that sink in for a second.
1,000 to 1. That's just, wow. That's not even close. Okay, so we've got this whole data problem, but what about the shelters that are out there? What did the report find?
Yeah, so even with all those challenges, the report does, highlight some good stuff, like actual shelters out there specifically for men and their kids.
Okay, so let's hear about those. Give me some names. Where are these shelters?
One that really jumped out was the Family Place. It's in Dallas, Texas. They've got 21 beds and a pretty impressive range of services like counseling, job skills stuff, legal help, even help with finding housing.
Wow, okay. That's amazing. A real one-stop shop for someone trying to get back on their feet. What other kind of havens did this report uncover?
Well, there's the Taylor House for Men down in Batesville, Arkansas. This one's really interesting, actually, because it's considered the first of its kind in the entire U.S. They offer both shelter and a program designed specifically for men who've experienced abuse.
Really, the very first. Wow. It's kind of incredible that it took, until now for something like that, but also like huge props to them for getting the ball rolling, right? It just goes to show how much work still needs to be done here. What about other parts of the U.S.? Anything hopeful in, say, the Southeast?
Yeah, the report actually mentions Daddy's House in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a pretty ambitious project, aims to offer a lot of those same services, but from what I understand, they're still trying to get funding. They haven't secured all of it yet.
Oh, wow. That's both like exciting and kind of, well, a little disheartening, right? Like it's great that they're trying to create this resource, but the fact that they're struggling for funding, it just highlights the bigger issue, Okay, so those are shelters just for men. What about places that help both men and women? I mean, there's got to be more of those, right?
You'd think so, but even finding solid information on those was tough. The report mentions a couple like Interval House and the 1736 Family Crisis Center. Both of those are in California.
Yeah.
And they do offer services to, all genders, but like details about their actual policies, especially when it comes to like older sons. It's hard to come by.
So even when these shelters exist, like just figuring out, okay, can they help a dad with teenage sons?
Yeah.
it's almost impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually a big theme throughout the whole report, this lack of like clear, accessible information. And it makes you wonder how many families are out there, in crisis who are being turned away or just falling through the cracks because of it.
That's such a good point. You mentioned California. Any other states with shelters that, are open to both men and women?
Let's see. Missouri's got a few. They've got Newhouse, Hope House, and Turning Point. But again, like trying to find specifics about like what they offer for men, especially with older boys, that was really limited.
Okay, so we're seeing a real pattern here. It's not just about how many shelters are out there, but it's also about like how easy is it to get clear, accurate info about them? Who do they serve? What do they actually offer?
Exactly. And without that transparency, it's incredibly difficult for men experiencing domestic violence to find the help they need. It's just not right.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but you're blindfolded. And speaking of challenges, the report also mentioned some states that just have really limited shelter access overall for both men and women.
Yeah, right. The report specifically called out North Dakota and South Dakota as having like really limited services, especially for men.
And knowing how these challenges are often even more difficult in rural areas where there are already fewer resources, it's probably safe to say that this is a way bigger issue than even this report can show.
Mhm.
It's like we're looking at this map, right? But there are all these huge blank spots. And those blank spots, they could be like so many stories that we're just not hearing. This whole deep dive has been, well, really eye-opening, to say the least. What's the biggest takeaway for you?
Honestly, I think it's just how big this information gap really is. We're trying to address this whole problem, but it's like we don't even have all the pieces. And it's not just about numbers, right? It's about like real people, real families. This report, even though it's, just a small glimpse, it shows us something that's too often ignored. Domestic violence, it impacts everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to think beyond those kind of common stories we hear.
Yeah.
For sure. So where do we even go from here? Like, what can we do with this information?
Well, awareness is huge, right? That's a start. But we can't stop there. We need to like talk about this more. Be louder, push for more funding for these men's shelters and demand better data collection. We need to know what we're dealing with here.
So it's about like fighting for policies that actually like get it,
Yeah.
policies that understand the unique challenges that men face and make sure that they have the same access to help.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the stigma, right? The stuff that keeps so many men from even admitting there's a problem, let alone asking for help. That's something we can all like challenge in our own lives.
It's like you were saying earlier, we need more what was it? Daddy's houses. We need more places where men don't have to like put up a front, where they can get help and not feel judged.
100%. Imagine if even half of the resources that go to women's shelters were also there for men. Just think about the impact that could have.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation. We've uncovered some tough stuff for sure, but there's hope here too. It makes you wonder, like, what can each of us do in our own little corners of the world to support all victims? It doesn't matter if it's, I don't know, volunteering, donating to a shelter, or even just, talking about this stuff more openly. Every little thing helps.
I love that. You're absolutely right. It's on all of us. It's not a men's issue. It's not a women's issue. It's a human issue.
It's time to close that information gap.
Yeah.
One conversation, one step at a time.